Feisty people. Welcome to the Feist.
This is everything you want to know about your favorite sports with us, your feistiest friends.
Kelly, you said my line.
Did I? I skipped it, so you got confused. I was just looking at you like you forgot your name for a second there. I was like, Sarah.
I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah Gross.
And I'm Kelly O'Mara. And today, welcome. Today we are going to hear from the ground in Tokyo for the end of the World Championships. It looked crazy, pouring rain. And so we have a reporter who's reporting to us. Also, girls sports at a record high. But first, Sarah, I hear we have a rugby final, Canada.
Team Canada Rugby.
Team Canada Rugby.
Yes, we are in the finals of the Rugby World Cup, which is happening at Twickenham on Saturday morning. Or Saturday morning our time, right. Saturday afternoon England time. And I am so excited. Okay, so Kelly, the big story this week from rugby was that someone had told me this, but I feel like it didn't land until I saw it on CBC and was like, oh yeah, that is remarkable. That Canada Rugby actually crowdfunded for this tournament. They crowdfunded $1 million Canadian dollars.
Oh, $1 million.
Yeah. And they're one of the only teams in there, or one of the, you know how there's a certain subset of teams who were in it to win it,
sure. Kind of.
And of that group, we're the least well funded, which isn't that surprising, I guess. But their tagline for their mission statement sort of for the crowdfunding they did was win Rugby World Cup 2025. So
I will say,
Saturday.
When Liv Apps, one of the Canada's players, was on the podcast about a month, when this all started, a month ago. And and we were like, it's going to be Canada-England in the final, knock on something. I mean, and you should go back, if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to that interview. She had a lot to say about just all of it, why it takes a month to get through all this, which it turns out is mostly injuries. I feel like beating up in this.
I honestly, I remember because we've talked about this a lot, because even most sports tours do not take
6
World
weeks,
Cups, do not, it's not week on week on week on week, right? So, but it's been kind of exciting, to just have one game a week and you're waiting with bated breath to see what happens next. But when I was doing this deep dive on the Canada team, I found out, and maybe you knew this already, Kelly, but New Zealand has actually won 6 out of 9. Well, I think it's 9 of the Women's Rugby World Cups.
I did know
which is wild that they got knocked out. And that's why they were calling Canada the underdogs.
Which
saw
to me
that. Was weird.
Yeah. I was they're ranked number 2. They're not really that much of an underdog. But New Zealand is, and I only know this because, so my dad played rugby when I was a kid, and I grew up in a rugby family as much as one can. And New Zealand, of course, I only knew all about New Zealand is the team, right?
It's the team.
The team. And you beat them.
And we beat them. And then the last time we did okay at a Rugby World Cup, we got silver in 2014. By we, I mean Canada.
We, personally.
Yes.
They also...
I'm so stoked.
We've been in knockout rounds for the last 2 weeks, but they did release the numbers from the pool play, the match, the first 3 weeks of rounds. And it was 7 million people on BBC. I think that was just BBC because it was...
who watched on
BBC? Yeah, because it was just BBC that was releasing the numbers. That is a lot of people. Obviously, we knew that it was going to have a big explosion this year, but...
So a couple of years ago, Kelly, you'll be shocked to learn, I had a big debate with a friend of my partner Jamie's at the pub about women's rugby.
Okay.
Because he, out of nowhere, went, Sarah, women's rugby, yes or no?
Yes or no?
Meaning, because he was making an argument that no one was going to watch, the typical things we always hear. I don't even want to repeat the argument.
Sure.
But so in my head, so we always have this joke now that's women's rugby, yes or no. So today I was like,
yes. Women's
rugby, yes.
Mm-hmm. The semifinal for England to get through was England-France. And I bet those numbers, the viewership numbers, are crazy because obviously England-France is a long and storied rivalry. Let's put it that way.
Well said.
Well said. So that was the big one this week. WNBA. I did watch the WNBA playoffs too, though, because oh my God, Sarah. Okay, so I know my Valkyries were the underdog. They were number 8 out of 8, but they almost upset the Lynx, and it was very exciting. We were all very, very excited, very worked up, and then the Lynx had a huge comeback in the fourth quarter, and they beat them by 1, and the Valkyries are out. But
so Valkyries in game 3.
No,
You're in
it's
game 3,
2.
I assume.
No,
in game 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Lynx won the first game,
of course,
and then in game 2. I'm like sort of these my comments have question marks behind them because I did not watch. So you could, and then in game 2, the Valkyries were leading until the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
I know. Heartbreak. Kelly.
It was like So, but it was very exciting, and and I feel like it's funny because the Valkyries, they were the first women's sports team to hit like a $500 million valuation. They've like sold out every game. They broke all these WNBA records. So now all these teams are looking to them as we expand WNBA to like 4 new teams the next 5 years. And as NWSL expands and as everybody is they're like, wait, how do we do this? So there's been all these stories, and they got the whole New York Times treatment last week with the playoffs, right?
Right.
That was like how they did this. And everyone keeps being like, how they did this. And my husband was laughing. He's like, they did it by being based in the Bay Area.
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. Go to where everyone's going to watch women's sports and start your team there.
It just cracked me up because 2 years ago, I did this big radio story about why doesn't the Bay Area have a pro women's sports team? Because at the time, we didn't have any.
I remember.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't allowed to just say sexism. I had to do like a whole story for some reason and do like reporting. But we were just about to get the NWSL team, and then like it was rumored about the WNBA team, and that got announced. Like, and now I was like, wait, maybe it could have been like this all along.
Right?
Who knew?
Yeah, and I have to say, I haven't been to. I mean, obviously, our Toronto Tempo team is launching next year. I haven't spent enough time in Toronto to know the vibes, to know if we're going to get that same kind of viewership and attendance. But I feel like if there was a team in Vancouver, we would.
Yeah.
The vibes would be there.
The vibes would be there.
Mm-hmm.
The and I shared this obviously with you, and then we like on the Feisty Instagram. But one of the facts that came out of all this to highlight the pay discrepancy was that all the the Valkyries play in the same stadium, same owners as the Warriors, which is part of why they're both like Golden State Warriors, Golden State Valkyries. See, it's like a play on
right.
Yeah.
All
the Valkyries players combined make less than the lowest paid Warriors player. Oof.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. I see why that stat went viral on our Instagram.
So pay the players. That's all we're going to say about that. We're not going to bring up all the standard old arguments. No.
Yeah.
Just pay the players.
Just pay them the same percentage.
Yes.
And that scales with the league growing.
Yes.
It makes sense.
Yes. So those were the 2 big playoffs this past week. And then the end of the Track World Championships. And so when I was like getting ready for the Track World Championships, and we were talking about it like last week and the week before, I reached out to some different athletes and some coaches, and then I was like, who could really tell us what it's like in Tokyo? And Mika Tokairin is the editor of the Japanese triathlon magazine. Her and her husband also run the site Japan Running News, which is a really big deal there because marathoning is huge in Japan. And she's reported for me from the Tokyo Olympics because you couldn't send anybody. So we were like, well, who's there that can report on it? So I was like, she'll know. She'll like be able to like, so I figured she would really, really know like what's going on, what it's like, how it compared to the Olympics, because it's in the same stadium that the Olympics were empty. Cool. So we called up Mika this past week and asked her all about how it's been. All right, welcome, Mika. Thanks for joining us from Tokyo. You've been going to the stadium a bunch, I assume, every day. What has it been like? It's the same stadium from the Olympics, right? But many more people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tokyo 2020 was empty. Nobody could get in the stadium, and athletes still has to compete in an empty stadium. But here, this time, it's like 60,000 people, and the stadium is kind of almost full every night, every morning, and it's really great vibe going on. It's a huge noise, and everyone enjoy that.
Are Japanese fans, really into running? Like, how are you getting 60,000 people out every day?
I don't know. We don't have many medalists in a track and field, but people still want to enjoy, and I think part of it is it's a new stadium we built for the Olympics, but nobody could get in, and people are trying to experience try to retreat the vibe of a lost Olympic experience, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. So is the vibe good? Are vibes high? Has it been fun?
Yeah, it's fun. Everybody, lots of my friends went there, and the people say, "Oh, it's amazing! It's so much different than just watching TV, and just the noise itself is incredible."
What has been the event that had like the biggest noise, craziest reaction?
I would say, of course, some event that Japanese athlete is doing, like a final. For example, 3,000-meter steeplechase. One men's athlete called Ryuji Miura competed in, and he's a kind of a medal contender. He unfortunately he didn't get the medal, but when he was running, the noise was like a Dolby sound system or what. It's incredible. And at the same time, the same night, the pole vault world record.
Oh yeah,
and that was. Yeah, like a bomb. Yes.
What has been, I know we're talking right now and there's 3 days left of competition, but what's been your favorite event so far?
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed that, 3,000-meter steeplechase. And that night was, it's like a magical. And also, I really like the road events like marathons and race walk. And it was a great experience, yes.
I mean, you and I have talked before about Japan's really into running, right? You guys do, you and your husband run Japanese running news. I couldn't say that for a second. What is Japan's history with running? Why is the country just so passionate about, long distance running?
Because of, I think, the tradition is of a sport called ekiden, which is a long-distance road relay. And we have a TV broadcast every year, like whole winter is every weekend have some broadcast about ekiden. And it's not an Olympic event and it's not like an international event, but people are really passionate and lots of stars are coming from that event and become a great marathoner. And we know that all the background story about each athlete, and we love the story and we love the sports. Yeah.
But not all of those athletes make it onto the track. They just no. Okay.
The Japan track and field event we are quite weak. So it's a little bit different. The road event is really huge, but track and field, but yeah.
Okay. And you said you're you've obviously covered a lot of these events, the Olympics, like the world triathlon races that are there, and you're working for a brand this year. Are there a lot of activations around the stadium and around the city as well?
Oh yeah. All the major brands are setting up some the brand house, the showroom or VIP rooms. So around that area in Tokyo, it's really all the brand logos around everywhere.
Are they trying to reach the spectators or people in Japan or the athletes or the TV viewers? Who is it for?
Oh, the brand thing. When the big event like this happening, all the people from all over the world come to the venue and talk about business in the future.
Okay, sure.
That kind of thing. So like a VIP and top athlete treatment and contract renewal, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I did see a video about, it was a video of them putting the hurdles out, and it was just about how efficient things are running and how smoothly. But then I've also heard athletes are having trouble with the buses, getting back and forth. So to your perspective, is it running really smoothly? Are there challenges? What are you hearing?
On the surface, I don't hear or I don't see any problem happening, and there's nothing. I haven't heard any complaint about that, but I'm sure there are putting a lot of energy to do it correctly, because there are two sub tracks, and one with one closer to the race hotel and one closer, not very close, but closer to the stadium, but still needs a bus commute. So, yeah, lots of logistics, challenging, I think.
Yeah, no, I heard that. But then obviously, Japan's also known for running very efficiently and like having all like very high level technology. So,
yeah, yeah, and the one of the sub track is just very close to where I live, and before it opens for before the World Athletics opens, I went in and checked what it's like, because that track was used to open to the general athlete like me, and
right.
I used to train in the track, so but it's whole new and then done nicely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now it's blocked off.
Yeah.
What else are you, I mean, this will air next week, but this weekend there are the finals. What else are you looking forward to as we wrap up here?
Tonight there's a women's javelin throw final. Oh, no, I think it's final. Yeah, and we have an Olympic gold medalist here, so she's a very high medal hope. And also there will be a 20-kilometer race walk and another medal contender in the men's side. So I'm looking forward to watching it.
Awesome. Well, good luck to your athletes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I do love what she was saying at the beginning about the lost Olympic experience.
Right.
Creating, I keep saying the word vibes this week for some reason, creating the, first of all, like she said, very full stadiums in the mornings and the evenings, like just creating the vibe in Tokyo for this World Championship. So I can understand that.
I think the fans wanted it as much as the athletes, because I remember talking to her back during the Tokyo Olympics, and like the only events that anyone could see were the ones that were like out on the road. A little bit of the cycling, a little bit of the track, but they even put up big fences and stuff around certain areas so that, and at the time, we were talking about Japan and rules around COVID and precautions, and they were pretty strict. Certainly not strict as some places, but so I think a lot of Tokyo was like ready for a mega world championship, wanted to get in that stadium, live it up.
Yeah, clearly they were ready.
Clearly.
And I love how she said that, she almost said like, we suck at track and field.
They're really into running there, though. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these Ikaiden. I can never say it right. They're these like long distance road relays that are wildly popular. Like she mentioned it in Japan, wildly popular. And they've tried to bring them here a few times. Like ASICS has sponsored some teams to do them. But it's just like, they don't catch on, but it's hard to explain like how popular they are there. People.
And what is it?
It is a long
what are
distance.
the distances?
Oh, I think it varies, but it's like it's like 100 miles. It's like obviously it'd be kilometers, but they're very long. There's no set distance. We're talking like a day, and you do it as a relay team.
You have multiple people, and do some people do the whole thing themselves?
No.
Okay, always a relay team, because we do have those.
No, but these are like highly competitive, broadcast on national TV. Everyone watches.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we don't have that.
That's
that
what
part.
I mean.
We don't have the broadcast. We just have you alone with your team in a van in the dark.
No. This is not Ragnar. This is like if the NFL was it's national TV. People try to win them. Like it's a, if you do win, you become like a national star. It's a whole thing. So
is there prize money? Do we think?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is in some of them, but
yeah,
it's a big deal. So they get really into, like she mentioned, marathon. Japan has a history of pretty good marathoners, and they get very into long distance running.
Yeah, it makes sense on the long distance side, but I just loved how she described how excited the fans get for their 3,000 meter steeplechaser.
Yes.
And there was one more, I forget right now, but yeah, very fun.
So, and it was, I don't know if you watched any over the weekend, it was pouring rain in Tokyo. And I thought at first I saw some of the pictures. I was like, oh yeah, that just makes for like dramatic pictures. And then I saw some of the video and I was like, how the hell would you run a 4x100 when it's when you have to be like so precise on the handoffs? Yeah. And it was, it was pouring. It let up, obviously like the 4x4, it wasn't as wet, but it was just like dumping. And the last day is the relays, is the 4x1 and the 4x4.
Yeah.
It seems stressful to me.
I'm just like fact checking something.
Whether or not it rained.
Down on my phone. No, not you. I feel like Team Canada at the men, we don't cover men's sports, but
the men's 4x1.
We won the 4x100, didn't we? Team Canada.
I actually don't know. I know you guys did well because Andre Degrassi or whatever didn't well. He used to go to my school. And the 4x4 men was also.
We took the silver.
Yeah.
You guys said the gold. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was like a rivalry. You guys.
You Americans.
U.S. and Botswana men were also rivalry in the 4x4. But the women swept the... I'm mostly focused on the women, Sarah. The women swept... The U.S. women swept the 4x1 and the 4x4, as they should. Mm-hmm. And I think out of that, the two crazy things were Sydney McLaughlin won the 400 flat, and she did it in like 47.78.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy. And it's one of these things where you like, nobody's run under 48 seconds in 50 years or something like that. And you want to say this without like nobody's run under 48 seconds without heavy suspicion of doping. She is the first person everyone pretty much thinks is clean. You never know, right? That is because the old times are very much asterisk-y next to them. Yes.
Yeah. Especially the 50 years ago is exactly the right, timing for the asterisk.
The other thing was
asterisk.
Nobody had run under 48 seconds in 45 years or whatever it was, and 2 people did in the final.
Wow.
So yeah, it's crazy. So then Shia was on the 4x4 team, ran another 40 sub 48 second, but that doesn't count because they get a running start or whatever. And then Melissa Jefferson Wooden, she swept the sprints. She went 100, 200, and 4x1. And nobody had done that since Shelly Ann back in.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is a hard triple to pull off.
Right. Now I'm just imagining all these things in the pouring rain.
Exactly, right? You're like, how do you not end up tearing a hamstring?
How do you set a record with actually not just wind resistance, but like water resistance?
So I think Melissa Jefferson Wooden gets a little bit, I don't know, overshadowed, she was the Olympic champion, was also in the final of the 100. She doesn't consider herself a 200. Gabby Thomas obviously is like a bigger name in the 200 in the US. And yet, and then like Shikari's, of course, like our biggest name, but then she wasn't running the 200. And yet Melissa Jefferson was just like consistently, and she ran the 4th fastest time ever in all of this, right? So it's like, I feel like maybe she's due her time in the sun now, right? I feel like
that's it. You feel like?
I feel like she's. Okay. I feel like she's due some attention. I feel like this is just our pause moment to be like,
right.
She is owed some respect here now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can take that moment right here on the podcast. We've called it.
We've called it. Melissa Jefferson Wooden.
Melissa Jefferson's moment.
Exactly. The other crazy sweep was the Kenyans ended up sweeping women, swept all 8 distance events.
Whoa.
And that was on the basis of there was a surprise in the 800 because they won the marathon. Beatrice Chebet won the 10K, 5K, Faith won the 1500, and then they even did the 800. That's crazy.
Wow. That's impressive.
I know, right?
Do they all do they train together?
Some of them do. So like Faith Kipyegon and Beatrice Chebet train together, and they like kind of cross over at the 5,000, but they do slightly different.
Right.
And when Faith won the 1500, which was her 4th world title, and she won by a lot, like it was, how 1500s usually come down to like leans. She was like 10 meters ahead. Like she was like way ahead.
Wow.
Yeah. But when she did, Beatrice Chebet was like crying in the stands, and they cut to her. So it was like her training part. So it was very cute. Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah.
Faith also has won. So people are talking about the Tokyo to Tokyo sweep. Like if you won the Tokyo Olympics, because there's a condensed form, right? The World Championships in between the Paris Olympics, and then so it's like if you won all of those,
all 4,
and she did. That's so hard to do.
Yeah, really hard to do.
So those are my stand-up moments from track. You're like
amazing.
The highlights.
I'm just getting my track highlights right now from you. So
the other thing, like I laughed when Mika was like, oh, because she was doing a bunch of work with brands, and I was kind of like, oh, she's like, well, everybody comes here to do business and like shake hands around the World Championship. And so there actually was, of course, like a World Athletics convening. What's the word where they sit around and they talk about how they're going to innovate? Like a big meeting. Yeah.
Oh no! This reminds me of the sum ups.
The sum ups.
Except for we realized very quickly you meant highlights.
Right.
But this is now like a
consortium, whatever. A meeting of all the people.
A meeting? Yeah. Okay.
To come together. So like the World Athletics president and all the board members, they sat around and talked about how, World Athletics' track is going to continue to innovate. And then they had this one day science fair, which is, like a conference for all the science fair.
And they brought their projects that they worked on at home. And someone had a volcano that actually erupted.
All right, here you go. Global Summit on Athletics, Science, and Medicine, presented by the World Academy for Endurance Medicine.
It's not the science fair.
It was a science fair.
Okay. Right. Close enough.
I mean, these things happen. They have one in Kona at the Ironman World Championship. Or a lot of times they'll have a big medical conference right before, and that's how they get all the doctors out there who then work the event. Like, that's how you get medical staff. They often do one before the Boston Marathon. Like, it's a very common thing. They don't usually make news because everyone's just like sitting around talking about best protocols for heat regulation in...
Right.
Right.
It's usually not news exciting enough to be newsworthy.
Right.
But unfortunately,
on Friday, there were these headlines going around that were like, the medical director for World Athletics says biological men were overrepresented in finals, and that's why we needed sex testing. And so I was reading these articles, Sarah.
Yes.
And even within the article, there were conflicts. Like, they were mixing up terms. Like, they started with, he said 50 or 60 athletes had gone through male puberty and made it to finals. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. How would you like? And then further down, they're like, 50 or 60 athletes showed evidence of having a differential sex disorder, which means they would have had like a non-performing Y chromosome or different levels of... I was like, well, those are not the same thing at all. So like,
yes,
the writer reporter's just saying these things.
So this is the article that I've got it open right now. This is actually The Guardian. So this is not like...
Well, it was all...
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not like small hidden.
No.
This is like mainstream media saying that between 50 and 60 athletes went through male puberty in the last 25 years who competed at a World Athletics final. Like, that's... ridiculous.
So that's the opening sentence, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound
fact check.
Right. That doesn't seem right. And then even within their own reporting, they're like, oh, well, what he said was 50 to 60 athletes had a DSD, like a differential sex disorder. And then you're like, well, that's different. Right. And then in my head, I'm like, well, how did they know they weren't testing for that? And then it's like, oh, well, this came out through anti-doping tests and elevated levels of testosterone. And you're like, well, that's even a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So I had all these questions, and these facts are not the same. Like, you are saying
and
things.
This was the medical director who apparently said
right of World Athletics, the medical director of World.
Okay.
So then I was like, okay, these the way this is being reported doesn't make sense. These are like not like you're saying things as if they're the same thing that are not the same thing. You're jumping and like making conclusions, and like maybe it's true that DSD athletes, differential sex disorder, are overrepresented in finals per percent, maybe. But like I just wanted to see so I went to find the actual paper. This was like. Because at these conferences, you present papers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like, it wasn't a paper. It was a passing remark in a keynote speech that wasn't videotaped. So now I can't find, like, you can't find the original, like, what he actually said.
Whoever said that, somebody said this out loud, and then it got reported into the newspaper about, like, we don't know where he was coming from with the original comment.
And so now it's getting picked up, and it was, like, on Fox News, and it's on, like, a bunch of these outlets that want to be like, see, this men in women's sports. And I don't think anyone is actually saying men were in women's sports. Like, that wasn't a thing. They're saying maybe there is a disproportionate number of people who had elevated testosterone. Maybe, as best I can make it out here. Maybe.
Or is it like sex differential? What's the word I'm looking for? Because that's different.
It is,
like
but the
DSD,
only way...
Like that's different than testosterone and whether you actually have enough elevated testosterone to make a performance difference.
But this goes to how would they even know if someone had DSD? They weren't testing for genes before. And they're basing it off anti-doping tests, which tested for testosterone. So the only thing we actually know here is that some number of people had differences in their testosterone levels.
Right.
As far as I can tell. As far as I can tell. And I'm sure someone will maybe someone who was actually there because we always have like random people listening who actually were like at these things. Maybe someone who was actually there can tell us what actually was presented, because I would really like to see where this is coming from.
I'd also love to know at each stage when they said elevated testosterone levels, like where they were drawing the line in any given year or at any given championship.
Sure, because it did change
right?
over the years what they were looking at.
Yeah.
That's a separate point.
So even in the medical profession,
yeah,
right, that has changed. Like what would be considered like normal for a woman, a range of testosterone. It was like different when I was being tested when I was a kid than like when I went through puberty than now. Right?
The other thing...
So, like,
yeah, I had so many questions. But the other thing that stood out to me is, so this supposedly, like, they were overrepresented 50 to 60 athletes between 2000 and 2023, which we know from these anti-doping tests. Yet the last time we did SRY gene testing in the Olympics was in 1986, and the last time they did it in World Athletics competition was in 1999. And there were 7 women at the Olympics that had the SRY gene, but then, you know, it turned out to, like, not be performing, or they had one of these anomalies. How do we go from 7 to 60 in 2 years? Yeah. Like, that's like, I find that hard to believe, right? Like, that's where I'm also like, this defines credulity. Yes,
it does. Like at every level, I have questions about every part of the sentence, like the 50 to 60, the went through puberty as a male versus.
I think that's just there's no way they went through puberty as a male. That's just like a thing that I feel like the news has run with, because that's how they tend to say it. Like,
right. So we're just gonna call that straight up inaccurate.
Right. That is straight up not true. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the leading line in the Guardian.
That is, article. I'm going to say that's just very much how the UK talks about these issues, and how, like, they conflate, not that all people in the UK, but the UK newspapers tend to conflate DSD athletes versus trans athletes versus intersex athletes versus high testosterone, like, as if all these things are the same. So,
yeah.
So I just feel like we needed to say that, because this news is everywhere. And it's being repeated and repeated. And I'm sure our president's going to tweet up. Sorry, he doesn't use Twitter anymore. Truth Social about it in all caps at any moment. And I would just like to point out that there are some major questions. And everyone from a science perspective who, like, really studies this is probably frustrated, because they're actually like really trying to, like, study and okay, there are these advantages and there are not these advantages, and this is the proportion we expect. And, like, it's very frustrating.
Yeah. Sigh is the right response to that. I mean, we've done sigh. I don't even know what else to say. Like, I don't have anything to add to that. Just sigh.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. There was a really good article one of the Australian Olympians wrote about all this sex testing, because I guess Australia, we'll include in the show notes, she wrote like this little essay about what they've gone through, because I guess Australia did sit down with all of their female athletes and do like a briefing on, like, this is like, which I don't think any other federation did. And she just kind of talked about, we've been conditioned to accept rules because that's like what it takes to be an Olympian. You just do whatever you're told to do. Right. And then she was talking about the briefing, and that they were basically told in Australia, I guess, that this test could really change. Like, if you end up with a positive SRY gene, like, it could really change your whole life. You could end up getting blown up on the media just because of how things are right now. Like, because it's a hereditary gene, it might open up some questions in your family. Like this could be a big deal. So think about it a lot before you take it. But also, if you don't take it, you won't have a career anymore. And you're like, okay.
Wow. I mean, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Like, I think, you know, it's funny that it took me this long, but today when I was preparing for the podcast, I thought, what if I had gone to a world championship and suddenly it had been like, you need to prove your female identity? Right. You know,
you'd be like
and this isn't the first, I'm not going to be the first person to say this, but I'm like, do the men have to prove their male identity? Sure. That would be the first thing, I think. But, like, I really, for some reason, just sat and, like, put myself in the shoes and thought, that is awful.
Yeah.
You know, at a world, and then you're like, it's like we talked about, like, because they put these rules, the World Athletics put these rules into effect very quickly before the World Championship, and then all the athletes who had to, like, rush around to get this test to have their proof, you know, with the risk, of course, like you just said, that you actually find out that you have a, you know, like that you have a gene anomaly that actually doesn't have any performance enhancement, and you have to go through this whole shit show. So
I will also be curious, obviously, because I hope there is a big effort to maintain privacy on these tests, but at some point they will end up releasing numbers, and I'm curious if they will line up with this 50 to 60.
Right.
Like, somehow they all disappeared after we started. Weird. I don't
that's
know.
right. There was 50 to 60 last year, but clearly everybody just went home.
Yeah.
Because they were done with their cheating.
So
They
bizarre.
left. It's like, what? No.
That was what I was thinking. Is I was like, well, if that is, what is the sentence I was told you before we started? That I heard somebody say this. It's hard to be surprising and right. So if this is very surprising to me, the 50 to 60 number. So I feel like it would have to be backed up if it was correct over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right, those were all of our. Was there any other sports this past week that you participated in, watched, enjoyed?
Not this this week.
No.
Participated in.
I know.
Well, I did. We did our hanging on the bar and dumbbell challenge. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. Oh, on your CrossFit. I thought you meant you and I, and I was like, no, we didn't.
No, we didn't. But I feel like you could have brought it to this particular challenge. Have you seen it going around?
You
on
like hang
Instagram
by
or
one
TikTok?
hand, and then you
hang by one hand, and then you have like you have to pull a dumbbell up, like you kind of clean it, and then touch the bar that you're hanging from. And so you just do increasing weights until you fail.
What did you get to?
35. I failed on 35. Yeah, and the two women I was doing it with, who are both 20 years younger than me, I need to add, got the 35 and then failed on 40, which I was pretty proud of. You're hanging there. You've got 30 extra pounds there hanging with you already, and then you get it up there. It's pretty good.
Coming up this week is there are more world championships. I feel like we're still in world championship.
It's like every week there's a world championship.
Every week there's a championship. We were laughing. One of our like production associate people, content producers, who's a big winter sports person, was like, yes, it is weird when you guys all call it championship season and our sports haven't even started.
Yeah.
But this weekend is World Trail and Mountain Running Championships, which has always been like a small thing, but it's actually kind of big this year.
World Trail and Mountain Running
Yeah.
Championships.
Like they're doing it in France. Like Katie Scheid decided to do this instead of UTMB.
Wow.
I feel like
trail running's very confusing.
I feel like you were not appropriately surprised there. That was a very surprising fact, Sarah, that she decided to do this instead of UTMB.
I just like, well, exactly. Like, you're like, okay, is UTMB bigger than the World Championships? Like, and then what is a World Championships if it's not the biggest event in your sport? There's a lot of questions.
I mean, I think what's happening with trail is that, like, and mountain, whatever, is that you're having that thing where a sport has grown and now our governing body is trying to come in and, like, manage it. And then they declare a world championship. And then the question is kind of like, okay, well, how do you grow up a world championship to be the same size as these other things that have organically
and it takes
grown.
a little while. Like we've seen this in triathlon. We've
Right.
seen a number of world championships born and grown up in our own sport. So
that's this weekend. And Xterra World Championships are also this weekend, which is the off-road triathlon. And we talked, if you go to the Feisty Triathlon podcast, we talked to the 3-time world champ a month or two ago, Solène, and she's been kind of jumping on and off the road this year. So she's going to jump in and try to defend her.
Oh, cool.
I know. You'll see how that goes. Because 4 would actually be a lot. Like, I mean, 3 is a lot. There's not very many people who have won 3. But 4 would be, it's like maybe one other person who's won 4.
4 would be a lot of world titles.
It would be, yeah. You're like,
4
weird.
would be a lot of world titles.
Sometimes I feel like I talk to too many world champions. And I'm just like, oh, you only won
Just
2
like,
world
well,
championships?
You won 1.
Whatever,
I mean, you're
yeah.
barely a world champion.
But those are both this weekend. And then the cycling world championships also started. They actually started this past weekend. You had the time trial, like Saturday, Sunday. And then this upcoming weekend is the road race. And in between, they're doing like U23, which is the first time there's been a standalone U23 women's race.
Right.
Which is kind of a big
Great.
deal. Yeah.
Great for the development of cycling.
Marlon Rousser, I can never say that right, won the TT, I do have to say. Even though, has to be noted, defending champ is out for pregnancy. Out for pregnancy, should we call it now?
out for, what did we call it before?
I don't know. What would you?
I think before we called it injured.
Injured.
Do you remember in our launch episode when
Hillary,
Hillary said, and I remember this, like honestly, from when I was an athlete, that like when you were pregnant, you had to use your sort of like injury card to keep getting funding, but then if you got injured, you were screwed because you couldn't have 2 injuries in a certain given period of time or whatever. So now we don't call it injured anymore. So progress.
Yeah. So Grace Brown's out being pregnant, and Marlene Reusser won. But the big news, obviously, is that it's in Rwanda, which is a first cycling like global championships in Africa. So that's like a really big, like that's great. That's a really big deal for Africa. It seems like a cool course. They're doing it aside Kigali. It's also raised a ton of questions though, because Rwanda has very much engaged in like a sports campaign to like bring good publicity.
Right. Which we've seen before. With other countries.
And there's been a lot of debate now about whether or not they're using it to kind of sports wash, because, and it's really come to a head now for other reasons, for global political reasons. But because Rwanda does have, since Kagame took over after the genocide, they have had a pretty cracking down on free press, journalists like locked up, some have been killed. And so like people within that country have like, there's been a lot of like human rights commission, like it's a real thing, right? Like it is definitely like pretty well documented, and people in the country are like, it's pretty problematic. So I think, I don't know, it's a big debate right now, because there's also been a lot of debate about the Israeli team in men's cycling at the Vuelta just now, and like the protesters who are kind of like, well, they shouldn't be allowed, Israel is engaging in what the UN is now calling, a genocide. So like they should be. So I think there is this like, where do you draw the line? Yeah,
and we've talked about this a lot over many years on many podcasts about where sports meet politics, right? And then you have like where the organization, for example, like the UCI organizing a world championship in Rwanda, right, is one issue. Then you have the like when athletes themselves are speaking up and when they should or shouldn't speak up. Like there's a lot of like sport. A lot of people want to kind of preserve sport and make it not political, which is kind of just a weird way of saying a generic thing, but like try to make sport, and that's just not really possible.
Oh no.
Right? Like if you're going to live in this world, you're going to come up against, I think it's possible to have, in the simplest sense to this particular issue about Rwanda, like it's possible to have a world championship in Africa without it being in Rwanda.
Sure.
Like I think there are other choices if they wanted to make them.
That's probably true. Rwanda does have like a cycle, like they do have a history here of cycling. They have had a cycling team. They've had other races. They had an Ironman race for a couple of years as part of this whole like trying to bring more. It had 300 people apparently. So it didn't get that big a crowd.
Didn't get the traction that they wanted.
So I think that's why they went to Rwanda, because it does have a history of some cycling events, and there are certain, when you do an international event, there's kind of like a RFP that goes out, that like has to hit certain things. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I don't know, like it's not undocumented is what I'm trying to say. This isn't like, there are people who have been writing and talking about problems in Rwanda and authoritarianism in Rwanda and funding of like war in the Democratic Republic of Congo for a long time. Like there are people who like really have studied this and write about it and advocate for it. So for them, they're kind of like, what the fuck, guys? Yeah. Like we've been telling you about this,
I think, the question when I was reading through some of the articles you sent about this issue, I was kind of thinking, does if we're accusing then Rwanda of like sports washing, to try to make their country look better in international eye, I suppose, then is it working? Because in some sense, like today, for example, like I would not have read 3 articles on this issue if it wasn't for this.
Interesting.
Like, or do you like spotlight something and then put it into the center of debate? And does that work against, so like, because obviously a lot of countries, we've seen that from some Middle Eastern countries to like the sports washing piece of it. And I think it depends. It really depends. I mean, I think like how much money you throw at stuff. It depends
how much money you throw at it. It depends on how good you are at the PR, right? Because what you're trying to do ultimately is have stories that are like this was great. Look, like all these people came and it was amazing. And like, look at these beautiful shots of the countryside. And you're trying to overwhelm, like when someone Googles, so that that's what they get, right? Like that is ultimately the idea and the goal, which probably depends on how well you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was just thinking, because in one of the articles they mentioned that on a previous occasion in Rwanda, they had taken homeless folks and put them into locked them into industrial.
Sure.
So it was like an insane story where you're like, okay, but I'm pretty sure it's true. So if something like that happened again and it comes out to the public, you're way worse off than you were.
Way worse than
remember in Rio how many stories there were around the things that
went wrong,
were happening behind the scenes to actually make the games happen. And I feel like there a lot of the media, in particular before the games started, once the game started,
then it was good.
You didn't hear, but it was months. You and I were covering this. It was months and months of will Rio be ready? Here's all the problematic elements of it, etc.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Maybe it just depends on, what PR firm you hire, how good they are at crisis management. Because there's definitely some of these countries that have very good PR firms, and they keep it tight, Sarah.
Yes.
So we'll see. I mean, when the Ironman was in Rwanda, it was actually 70.3. I was very much considering going because I was very curious just to see what it was like. So
yeah.
So anyway, that is also happening. Cycling World Champs. I also feel like there's too many events. It's the Cycling World Champs, and it was the Gravel National Champs this past weekend, and it was the Men's Vuelta, and then it was the Berlin Marathon at the same time as the Track and Field World. And I was like, this is too many things.
That's your big takeaway from this week?
Obviously my point there is that it is not good for the sport in quotations because nobody can follow and it's breaking up. It divides up fan attention and athlete ability and all that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've made it through almost a whole episode without you declaring why you would be amazing at a sport.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of waiting for that, just so you know.
Just waiting to see what sport I would be amazing at.
Which. Yes.
See, I didn't actually think I would be good at your challenge with the dumbbells. I have terrible grip strength, so I was like, well.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that. Yeah. I retract my comments.
This is what stopped me from being good at CrossFit, as we've discussed.
I thought it was just the pegboard. It's just grip strength, broadly speaking. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Climbing is also challenging.
Interesting.
American Ninja Warrior. Have you seen the American? I'm always how do they hold on? It's so the little ledges. I was watching the video from the Australian woman who was the first ever to make the finals or whatever, and it's crazy in American Ninja Warrior in Australia. And how do you hold on with the tips of your fingers? I don't know. Sure.
Yeah. So climbing is okay. Now I'm going to be the one to declare. Okay. In the 2 times that I've done climbing in my life, I'm going to say I was good at it for someone who's done climbing 2 times in her life. The thing that got me is the height. Right? So I couldn't be a pure climber. You know what I mean? But if climbing was an element, Ninja Warrior style, then maybe after my 10,000 hours.
Right, sure.
I would do okay,
10,000 hours is such a made up thing. Side point.
I know. But I just knew people would know what I meant.
Yeah. So. I just want to make up things that people just repeat forever.
Yeah. I like to tell myself, when I do things, when I'm doing things for the first time, how to scale myself in an entirely arbitrary and made up scale of how well I'm doing compared to the average person who's been doing it for 1 hour.
Okay.
Right? In my first hour of gymnastics.
There you go.
I think I'm better than the average person in their first hour of gymnastics. And then if that doesn't scale enough to have for me to have a positive comment for myself, I add age in or something. Be I think I'm better than the average 49-year-old in their first hour of climbing.
Steve, one time in a race a long time ago, yelled at me, "You're the first person wearing a t-shirt."
Ooh, excellent. I like that. Yeah.
I was like, okay, there you go.
Thanks, Steve. Someone in Ironman Canada one time, I think I was running in 4th, and whatever, that's good. But they were they told me that I had the nicest kit. You know, like you're fourth, but you have your number one kit. Like, perfect. And it made me so happy. I was like, well, at least I've won something.
At least I've won something. That's the attitude, Sarah. See, I don't think these people who are 3-time world champions think like that. I'm just going to tell you.
At least I think my outfit's nicer than the person in front of me. Yeah, maybe.
All right. Last thing for the week, for our Feisty Picks is they came out with numbers a week or so ago about high school. The number of people doing high school sports has gone up, and the number of girls doing high school sports in the U.S. Record high, 3.5 million girls doing high school sports, like the last year, which is the most ever. And you know what? 3 sports are still the biggest.
Oh, I looked it up.
Track, volleyball, and soccer for girls.
Oh, is basketball number 4? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I was very interesting. The sports for the girls and boys were very similar. They were just in a different mix.
That's true.
You know, if you took football off the top of boys.
Right, because boys is like football, track, and then like basketball and soccer.
So that's really interesting. Okay, track was number 1.
I think it's just because it's like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how it is in Canada, but it's like anyone can do it. There's no cuts.
That's what I was going to say. So like track was the thing that we used to do at the end of like, we had sports in 3 blocks. Like a fall, winter, spring sport.
Right.
And then track, you could just add on.
You could just do track. You could just be like, I'm
you
going
could
to
just show up and run 100 meters.
Yeah.
Right? I'd be like, great.
There were always like 60 girls signed up for the 100. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's probably why they get those big numbers. Versus, do they mean who actually train for track?
I don't think they're like judging, right? I don't think they're like, well, how many hours? How good are you as a 15-year-old?
How many of your 10,000 hours have you done?
I think they're just
the other one that surprised me is. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I think they're just like encouraging participation.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm here for that. And honestly, a child should be able to rock up and run 100 meters. You know, the other one that surprised me a little was cross country was ranked pretty highly, like for both boys and girls.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it's also no cut. Like at least when we were kids, right? There was like 30 girls on the team, and they ran variations of JV and Frosh Soft and varsity.
Now you're just saying acronyms.
No, these are real things in the America. Yeah, these are real things.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. My experience was not that cross country was that popular. In fact, I feel like it was like we all avoided it to do team sports. It was like I could go run 4K. Why would I do that? Or I could go play volleyball.
Yeah.
Go play volleyball.
You go play volleyball. I think there was also I don't know. There's probably also like who's cool at your school and I think they probably lump track.
There's vibes.
There's vibes. Yeah. And I think they probably lump track and cross country together here in this counting. But the interesting thing was the fastest growing sports for girls were wrestling and flag football.
That is amazing and not that surprising.
No.
Right? In an era, I think when we're seeing more variety of women's sports, we're seeing more on TV. We're seeing, remember the Netflix boxing special, for example. Like, I think all of those things change our cultural perception around like what women should do. And then, like you've talked about too, or we've talked about in previous weeks, the massive uptick in flag, just broadly speaking, and the inclusiveness of it. So it doesn't surprise me that much that flag and wrestling are.
I mean, wrestling is the most recent approved NCAA, so I would imagine that'll just continue to skyrocket,
right?
Because for girls, so that was interesting, kind of fun to see.
Yeah, cool.
Sports still growing, because on the other end, you have all of these like individual stories kind of coming out about like states and provinces in Canada and stuff where you're starting to have to do like gender verification for high school sports. Oh, no. Then of course like numbers are dropping, because I can even imagine me, like I was like, to your point, I actually trained for track. And if someone had been like, you have to take like this, you have to go and prove you're a girl, I'd have been like, I could do something else.
Badminton.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll just go be fine. On like the newspaper instead, right? Like I would have been like, I have other interests. It's fine.
100%. Yeah. So I read the article that our colleague sent us from the Edmonton Journal as well. My heart was breaking for like, and I'm a bit like, okay, Alberta is our most sort of conservative leaning province in Canada, right? But Edmonton is generally a bit of a like liberal outpost within the Alberta environment. So I was a little bit surprised that it's the Edmonton School Board that put into place this gender verification thing for girls sports. That was, imagine. You like get to 7th grade and you try out for a team, and then they're like, okay, but you can't play until you signed your gender verification document, and you have to have some kind of separate documentation that's not your birth certificate, but like some gender at birth weird thing that they've made up that I don't even know how you get, and I'm a Canadian. Like, what?
It's a problem. I mean, like, we're seeing in some states here where people
well,
are
I
like,
know that, but I'm like, what the fuck, Canada?
You're like, yeah, we knew the US was a mess. But
I knew that.
it does, because we also, there are so many stats. Again, like, right? Like, what's the whole, like, it's hard to be right and surprising. Years of stats show that girls drop out of sports around 13, 14, right?
Yes.
So then we're, like, going to add a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
Like,
like,
I know, let's add a hurdle.
Yeah.
Like, going home with this form that's like, you have to sign off on that you're a girl, but your brother doesn't have to.
Yeah.
That, like, what?
So the high school growth numbers were from this past, obviously from the last year. So I am curious would be the nice way to put it, to see what happens moving forward. Because I just, the vibes are not great there.
Of encouraging women in sports right now.
It's not awesome.
Things could shift.
I know there's always this, like, I live like by a middle school and a high school, and I'm always like telling you guys, like, oh, the kids are wearing this now. But, you know, I live like outside the Bay Area. Like, the 14-year-old girls here are like probably the direction things are going in a general, like, cultural
we hope
zeitgeist
so,
way.
but...
No, we don't. Because my point is, like, it is going south. It is going south right now. And you're like, oh, that's not great.
How so? Unpack that for me.
Unpack that for me.
Double click on that.
Double click on that. Let's take a moment. I'm just saying, if you are just like looking at that, like, obviously in these broad kind of like what's happening strokes, right?
Yeah.
It had been going in one direction for the past however many years, and now it's very deeply going back in a, like, very quickly hard turn going back in a, like, deeply feminine, like, classic femininity direction.
Oh, okay. So this is just so I have this right. So old lady Kelly is like sitting in her rocking chair, looking out the window at the kids walking by.
No, I had Starbucks, but yeah.
Okay. And you see that the girls are dressing more conservatively. Like, are we talking like floral print dresses here?
Yeah. I just and I was at the Starbucks. I was listening to all of them talking after their first week of school.
Oh,
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like Sarah, there's a lot of 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds just like hanging out, riding their bikes around our neighborhood. At our park, I get a lot of like secondhand.
You just
vibes.
absorb, yeah. And for the record, there's nothing wrong with floral print dresses. No. I was just trying to understand the vibe.
And I'm just telling you, our district and area has tended historically to be a very liberal leaning area, and so of course it statistically still is. And I'm saying I think it's going back. I think we're seeing the whole like shift happening. You're like,
Sigh. That's all I've got by way of response.
All right. Do you have your feisty pick for the week? Are you ready?
I do.
Okay.
So mine is Sophie de Goede, who is our Canadian rugby player. She's been nominated for Player of the Year. But in the game against New Zealand, I think she scored a try, 2 conversions, and a penalty. So she's sort of like shot into the news this week, and she's from Victoria.
Well, aren't they like all from Victoria because like the team trains there?
Well, the team trains here, but I believe. Okay, I now just like read this in an article 20 minutes before recording.
No, nice. You don't like
so
know
we're just
her
gonna have
personally.
I don't like. She's not a personal friend of mine,
okay.
But it said from Victoria. So I don't know if that means like lives in Victoria. Which you're right. Then it would be like the entire team, but it said from Victoria. So. Yeah.
Cool.
We love it.
My pick is going to be, so you know what Everesting is?
Yes, well, I do.
Well, you do.
But perhaps our audience does
So
not.
Everesting was this thing people came up with during the peak pandemic where you would cover the height of Everest on your bike. So it usually involves going up and down a mountain a bunch of times so that you can...
You can also do it on foot,
You
right?
could, but most people did it on the bike. But you have to go up and down to get to like 29,000 feet of elevation. So they had the first ever Everesting World Championships, and they did it in Spain. So there's like a Mount Eden or whatever right there that people went up and down. And you took like 7 times going up and down it to get the 20. And Illi Gardner won in 8.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
She was apparently like an hour ahead of the second place woman. But
okay, so when they're scoring this, do you count the time for down too?
Historically, you have, like when people were doing it during the pandemic, which is why there was a lot of debate when people were doing this, when we all were like bored. Of like what like you want to choose something that's long enough that you can really get your Like, you don't want to have to go back up and forth, back down something that's only like 10 minutes, because that would just take you like forever. But if it's too long, and then it would take like a really long. So it was like kind of like you wanted to get a good bang for your buck, because you were counting the downhill too.
The down was right. So the down would actually matter how technical it was too, and stuff like that, or how steep.
So anyway.
And now there's an Everesting, to the point of there's too many world championships. Yes. We have an Everesting World Championships. We should make one up, Kelly.
We should.
This is our chance
to make up a world championship.
We just make up something we're really good at, and then we win.
And then
we can go out and recruit people.
Oh, okay.
And they can have their moment of recruitment. You wanted. Yeah. We can do like, we recruit you to our
world championship.
Yes.
My mom gave me this birthday card a long time ago that said, if you want to win, make up the rules, or make up your own game and don't tell anyone the rules. And I was like, there you go.
Seems like a great plan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you all for listening this week. I feel like it wasn't our most random show. It was pretty random.
It was 50, not 50. Our most random show. It was a mid. It was a mid random show, everyone.
And then next week we are talking to the new WNBA president, right? Or we're hearing from her.
Yes, but we have the interview lined up.
And then the week after, we will be in Kona for the last Women's Ironman World Championships. So we will be doing a show from there. And then I think we might actually be hearing from the Rampage. Rampage is back. We'll talk all about that. So it's a big few weeks here. Stay tuned.